Okay, great. Let me confirm if I have the live streaming ongoing to be sure that you're able to get this once we're done with the class. Okay, great. It's live already. Okay, it's live already, so I can get onto this class. Okay, we'll be looking at data literacy professional. I'm going to give you the background knowledge of what data science or data analysis is and why data is very important. We'll be doing this together. So at intervals, I'm going to ask you a question. For me, the way I love to teach is to use there's an approach I call cow is chasing me approach. So what it means is if you're under pressure, you tend to do things that you don't believe you could do. So that's what I'm going to be doing in this class. I will putting you on the spot. So I can call any of you. I can call anybody and ask you questions. So let's get to it. So for this session, we'll be looking at introduction to data, communicating data insight, data literacy, and all of those things. So let's look at the introduction. For this introduction, we'll be looking at databases, the very basis of data, and we'll look at data wisdom, and we'll look at in data in depth. Now, you want to ask yourself, what is data in all its sense? Why is analyzing data important? What is the impact of analyzing data? And that gives you the importance of the career you're learning now. I know learning a new thing, it's been tough. I've gotten feedbacks. I know it's not so easy, but I think this will give you more clarity to propel you to take on this journey, right, with us. So basically, you want to ask yourself, why data? Why is the world moving towards that? Why is the world, why is the speed at which AI, data analytics, data science, the speed at which it's taking over things is at this high speed? I'll tell you one of the important things. The world has gotten to a point that whatever decision anybody makes will usually not affect just the person, it's going to affect the entire country or the entire organization, wherever you find yourself. Now, most corporate organizations, even government, have come to realize that if we don't make data driven decision, we'll put our people into trouble. I'm not a political person. I'm going to just use Nigeria as an example. I'm not affiliated with any political group. But I ask myself, a lot of decisions that are made in government, if they were properly analyzed, would they have made those decisions and say, oh, today I've become your president, I'm removing subsidy, right? It's over 1 year. I mean, the country has not recovered from that decision. Then at the end of the day, we ask ourselves, was that the right decision to make? Were there things that are supposed to be put in place before that decision is made? Right? So I'm not sounding political. I'm just saying whatever decision is made, it affects a lot. Think about organization. How many of you probably saw in the newspaper some weeks ago? If you know this hotel, Federal Palace in Abuja, it's one of the biggest hotel franchise in Africa. This year they declared a loss of, I think, a loss of about 36 billion naira. And you ask yourself, how come a company that big, an hotel chain that big, could make that loss? It could be fraud, it could be anything, but the bottom line is fraud is possible if your data are not analyzed. So you now look at how multiversatile this skill is when it comes to finance, sales analysis, risk assessment, all of those things. These are things that now form the core principle by which businesses today will survive. Not just businesses, any organization, whether it's country, it's a community, they have to make data driven decision. And that is why there is an increase in the number of job opportunities for data analysts, because decision makers want their data analyzed so that they can make proper decisions. As a data analyst, you're not the decision maker, but you are the one to help make decision, and that's why we'll be looking at databases. Okay, so let's look at it. Data is everywhere. Think about anything, their data. Imagine today you go to the hospital, right? For whatever reason, what are the first thing they're going to ask you? I want you to drop on the chat function. When you go to the hospital for the first time, or if you're bold enough, you can unmute and talk. What are those things they're going to ask you? I want that feedback. Anybody, you can either drop it on the chat function or you unmute and talk to me. What are those things they're going to ask you your first visit to the hospital? I'm waiting. Mr. Bello, you want to go? Or you've never been to the hospital? Okay, I'm seeing chat on the chat functions already. Okay, Mr. Bello said, how you feel today? No, that's not what they're going to ask first, though. I think Mr. Bello has never been to the hospital.
Good morning. They will ask about your name, your age, your sex, are you male or female? They're going to ask you that, where are you coming from? Then they can ask you your symptoms, which doctor you like to see.
Okay, I like that answer. I mean, obviously, Madam Jumoke, she's a lady, so she should know. But usually, what they want to know, if you're coming for the first time, they ask you, do you have a card? You say, no, I don't have a card. They are going to open a card for you, right? And on the card, they write your name, which is your biodata, your name, your address, your next of kin. Good. The next thing they're going to do is a nurse will see you and ask you, the nurse will not ask you what is wrong with you. They will only take your vital sign, your temperature, your height, your weight, your blood pressure, right? Then they take you to the doctor. The doctor will now say, oh, what is wrong with you? What will the doctor do when he start talking about what is wrong with you? The doctor start taking data, information about you. Oh, you told me you have headache. He writes it. Do you have these symptoms? They actually. So what is the doctor doing? They are collecting data from you to be able to know what they are going to do to help you. So if the person, oh, I have high fever, I have blah blah blah, high fever and all of those things. Do you have appetite? I don't have appetite and all of those things. The doctor might suspect that what the person have is malaria. But to confirm further, the doctor will say, okay, go to the lab, go and do malaria parasite test. Once you do that test, what happens? And it comes out malaria positive. They give you anti-malaria drug or injection. What the doctor did, the entire process, was to get to a point to make sure to know we have identified the problem and we're able to provide the right solution. So imagine you went to an hospital for the first time. They didn't ask you what is wrong with you and they gave you drug. Will you go back to such hospital? Obviously, you will not. And that is why businesses are also making their business process to be data driven. Another example, I'm going to make another example so that we'll put this to life. Let's look at supply chain, for example. So imagine you find yourself in, let's say you own a truck business and you deliver product for people across the country, and you're going to pick up products from, let's say, Dangote Cement. What are those things you think will happen from the gate to when you're going to leave? I won't respond. Listen to my questions. I told you my approach to teaching is cow is chasing me. I'm going to put you under pressure to be able to say something. So this question, I want Mr. Gbenga to unmute. If you own a truck business and you're going into Dangote Cement to pick up products from the gate, what are those things you think the security will ask you? To where you go to sales, from sales to where you pick up the product and you drive out. So let's talk. I'm listening, Mr. Gbenga.
They would ask if your name is listed amongst the names of suppliers.
Good.
They would ask if you have the relevant documents.
Good.
Sales would ask you if you've
evidence of payment.
Yes, evidence of payment.
Good.
If you've been mobilized, and I think that's about all I can think of.
Okay, I love that. Very brilliant. So let's paint what I'm trying to drive out is to make you understand that data is everywhere. So if you go to Dangote Cement, you enter with your truck, the first thing the security man will do is to inspect your truck and see if there's no anything inside the truck, and they're going to collect details from you, your name and your truck plate number, so that by the time you are leaving, they know that it's the person that came in that went out. Then you want to pick up 1,000 bags of cement, you go to sales and say, okay, I've made this also amount into your account, blah blah blah. Sales confirm the payment, and on what will sales do? Sales will also collect data from you, your name, the volume of the product you want to buy, the amount you paid, and maybe the head of sales will sign that this person has paid. Go to store and pick up. Now, once you get to store to pick up, the person in the store, the storekeeper will ask you, let me see what they gave you at sales. They are also going to document it. Okay, Mr. Gbenga when did this blah 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 is picking 1,000 bags. Then what happened? They start loading your truck. Once you are going through the exit gate, the security man in the exit gate will stop you and ask you, let me see the evidence that you've bought this product, and they also will document. Now, why are they doing all of this documentation? Is to collect data. That's data collection process. So let's imagine at the end of the day, there was a loss of 5,000 bags of cement. What would they do? They will go across the entire document collection point to trace where that loss come from. So data is everywhere. Educational level is data, temperature, your sex, your address, and data are collected across different spectrums, across different industry. Data are collected. Now, what is data? Data was derived from the word datum, which means given, fact, right? And we have two formats of data. We have the structured data and the unstructured data. As data analysts, most of the time you're going to work with structured data. Structured data are data that are in tabular form, right? So let's imagine this is primary 2 class. As a teacher, somebody is asking me, oh, give me the details of your student. I can put in a tabular form, their name, their age, their gender, and their grade, right? And I equally could write it in a sentence. I have 5 students, their names are blah, 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 blah. This data is unstructured. Why this data is structured? And in every organization, you're going to have structured data and unstructured data. One thing is key about structured data. They're usually in tabular form. They have predefined structure. They could be text and number. So for instance, customer information, if you go to a distribution company and say, oh, I want to see customer information, you can have it in tabular form, right? Then also, if you go to your bank and say, give me my account statement, what would they do? They'll print it out for you, and you're going to have it in what? In tabular form, showing the date of every withdrawal, the date of every deposit, right? Then we now have unstructured data. These are data that are not organized. They don't have specific format, but they are equally important data, right? You have images, audio, videos. These are important data. For instance, surveillance video is important data, which could be analyzed to know whatever happened in a particular place, right? But they are unstructured data. Your report, your email, if I send you an email, it's a data, but it's unstructured. So we have structured data and unstructured data. At the same time, we have qualitative data and quantitative data. What's the difference? The quantitative data are usually numeric data. count, measures, something that represents number. If I ask you what is your age and you tell me, oh, I'm 40, right? That is a numeric data. It's quantitative. It is quantity. I'll tell you, if I ask you what is the temperature of the room you have currently, and you tell me, oh, the temperature is about 25 degrees Celsius. It's a quantitative data. Then we now have what we call the qualitative data. They are usually categorical data. What do I mean by categorical data? They have categories. So if I ask you, how many tribes are in Nigeria? You say, oh, there are over 250 tribes, but we have the main 3 tribes, Hausa, Yoruba, Igbo. These are categorical, right? They are data that qualifies, not quantify. So if I ask you, let's say you're running the data for, let's say, ShopRite, and you want to now categorize data for their milk into qualitative and quantitative. So if you have several milk brands, that is a qualitative data. So their milk has several brands, Peak, Cowbell, and all of those things. So if I say, oh, the milk brand, they are qualitative data, right? But if I ask you to tell me, oh, how many beverages do they sell, and say they sell tea, they sell they sell milk, and all of those things, that becomes quantitative, because I'm dealing with numbers. But when I start dealing with, okay, gender is a qualitative data, because according to Nigerian law, I don't know for abroad, is either you're a male or you're a female, right? Those are data that you can put in group, right? Then data like educational level is a qualitative data, because I have to categorize people by those data, right? But if I say how many people are in this class, they say there are 12 people in this class, that is a quantitative data. So you must understand that part about data. Then let's talk about data context. Now, there's so many things. The data is voluminous. There's so many things. But what makes data make sense is when we put a context to data, which I'm going to deal with much later. So let's look at how data is used for an individual. I mean, what's the first thing you do when you collect your salary? You plan with it and say, okay, in the last month I spent about 20K on transportation, so let me save 20K. What is making you make that decision is your previous experience, which is the previous data you've gathered or you have experienced, right? And this also, when it comes to use of data, you use data to manage your time, you use data to track your health and all of those things. And also for organization, data is used by government for healthcare. For instance, for healthcare, all the data they collect determines how they treat the patient, right? For supply chain and all of those things. So in an organization, there are business objectives. One is profitability for profit-driven businesses, social good for NGOs, research for academics, and customer satisfaction and employee happiness. There's different organization goals, right? But this helps us to now benchmark what it means to succeed or what it means to fail. I'll use healthcare for example, right? You must have seen data that says, oh, what they used to call it, they used to call it child mortality rate. Now, for an hospital that is having so many death rates, what will be the public position about the hospital? They look at it that that's a bad place to go, right? And that's the way it is globally. I mean, in every organization, if you know the current company you're working in, they are recording loss every year. Something tells you that one day this business will fold up. The intelligent thing to do is to start looking for another job, right? So there are benchmarks across different sectors that define success, and that means that we are now analyzing data to see if we meet up with such benchmark, to either make a better decision to improve or to make a decision to consistently do what we are doing. I'll give you an example. Let's imagine you hire 3 salesperson. Salesperson A is generating 1 million naira a month. Salesperson B is generating about, let's say, 500k. Why salesperson C is barely able to generate 100,000 a month as sales, right? And all of them are in the same level. Now, if I want to promote any of them, what will I consider? I'm going to consider the volume of sales that each of them generate to determine who is promotable. And at the same time, if I want to fire any of them, I'm going to see the volume of sales they are generating to be able to determine who is fireable and who is not fireable. What makes me make that decision? Well, because there are metrics that define success. For a salesperson, the metrics that define success is the volume of sales you're able to generate, right? And these are different across different sectors or different professional group. So let me move forward. I've talked about data in healthcare, right? Data in healthcare helps us to improve able to develop a number of solutions, like all this wearable device that checks your blood pressure, your pulse, and all of those things. Then we have data in supply chain. What do we mean by supply chain? For those that are probably in that sector, will understand, right? How many of you know this product? Let's even talk about it. Big Cola. I want us to talk. Big Cola. How many of us know this product? The product was launched sometimes in 2014, but they are no more in the market. And how many of us know? I'm going to ask my question so that we'll discuss it. How many of us know Biggie Cola? Biggie Cola came into the market something around I think 2014, 2016, 2017, if my statistics is right. But before Biggie Cola and what's it called? Before Biggie came into the market, who are those people ruling the soft drink industry in Nigeria? What's the name of the companies ruling that are leading in the beverage company in Nigeria? Soft drink. Coca-Cola and what? And who?
Pepsi.
And Pepsi. Thank you. Now, what happened was in 2016 or 2017, I can't remember the year. There's some guys that launched a product. Big. How many of you remember there was one drink called Big Cola? Let me see if I can get the image on my computer. Big Cola.
I remember.
You remember? Can you still see this brand? Is this brand still common?
No.
They are not common, right? Good. Now, it was after then Biggie Cola came in. I mean, the Biggie product. Now, what happened to Big Cola? The problem they had was a supply chain problem. Because when they came with 60 CL. Coke and Pepsi were doing 50 CL. So it's bigger. So what people did was people were like, I have more value. So people start buying Big Cola. As people started buying Big Cola, the demand for it went up. However, their supply was not enough to meet up with the demand. And they started having problem with supply chain, because once your demand is very high and you're not able to supply, what will happen is it will force the market to increase the cost of that product. So distributors will naturally increase the cost and say, and once they increase the cost, the general consumer will shift focus and say, oh, this thing that they were selling 100 naira before, they want to start selling it to us at 150 or 120. We are not buying again. Then what happens? It kills that business. So when it comes to optimizing process, optimizing production, data are very important to be able to ensure that we are optimizing processes. Let me make another example. So let's imagine you were hired by, let's say Fan Milk. I believe everybody knows Fan Milk. Fan Milk is saying, we want to know what we're not doing right. Right? We want to we notice that our sales has dropped. Let's say they notice their sales has dropped and you're analyzing their data. So let's say you're doing operational analysis. The first thing you want to look at is, okay, what's the production of your machines? So let's say they checked and they saw, oh, regularly their machine makes about let's say 10,000 fan milk every day, and they run 2 machines. Then what happened? One of the machine started dropping in the volume of what it produced, right? So what happened? It drops the volume of what they are able to take to the market, which will impact on what? On their income, on the revenue generated, because usually they take 10,000 product to the market, but now they are taking 5,000 products to the market. So let's say the machine cost 100 million and they don't have the money to buy it at that time. Now, will it be reasonable for them to take a loan to buy that machine? I want response. Will it be reasonable for them to take a loan? Let me paint the scenario again. Fan mix, for example, they do 10,000 fan mix comes out from their machine. They run 2 machines, each produce 5,000 every day. But one of the machine packed up, and the cost of the machine is about 100 million, right? So because that machine packed up, their production has reduced by 50%, right? Then those guys in finance are saying, no, we don't have money to buy a new machine. But the guys in production are saying, the guys in sales are saying, we are not able to sell, we are not able to generate so much revenue as the product you're taking to the market is lesser than the usual, right? So will it be advisable for them to take a loan to buy a new machine so that they can get back to their production rate? I want response. You're going to tell me if it's a yes and you tell me why. And if your answer is a no, you tell me why. I want response. You
I
can
say,
okay, thank you, Mr. Gbenga.
I would say yes, because number one, it will save them money in the long run.
Good.
Number two, leakages will be stopped. The new machine is not going to have those leakages, so production will also go up, and that will be more revenue. So in the long run, it will save them money.
Oh, great. I love that answer. Who has a contrary opinion or have another answer? You guys are analysts already. Anybody? I want a lady to talk. Okay, no, go ahead, Muli.
Well, for me, I think I would say no.
Okay.
Because if they were making enough sales before, I think they would have, I think if they were making enough sales and profit, the finance wouldn't say there's no money. I'm now going to take loan from the bank at maybe some interest rate. I don't know whatever interest rate that will now accrue to. Will they be able to pay back on the long run?
Thank you for your answer. Thank you for your answer. I love both answers. They makes a lot of sense. They're seeing it at a different perspective, which makes a lot of sense. I love that answer. But this is the way I'm going to see it, right? The first thing is to find out why is finance not willing, does not have that money. Could it be that they just finished a capital project, right? And another thing is, okay, what's the volume of our revenue to see if we're able to meet up with that loan? Another thing that they will also be careful of is their market share. If your production is 10,000, you take 10,000 to the market every day and you sell it all. Once your production rates drop, another competitor will take over that market from you. And usually for big business, they don't only look at profit, they look at market share. How many of you know that the same maker of, do you know that Peak Milk, the company that makes Peak Milk, that is the same company that is making 3 Crown, that is the same company that is making Nunu, and I think there's one other milk they make. Do you know why? There's something we call pseudo competition. I am the same person and I'm making four different mix that are competing with themselves in the market, and I create different narrative about them. That Peak Milk is the best, is the milk for the rich. Nunu is also good for children, and all of those things. What are they trying to do? They want to make sure that they are providing to everybody in that market, so that if a new competitor come in, they are too powerful to beat them. So if we don't make so much money from Peak, we'll make more money from Nunu. We'll make money from 3 Crown. I think they are also the one doing Olympic. So for big businesses, what they are looking, and before they arrive at this decision, analysis was have been done. They realize that not everybody can afford Peak. If it is only Peak we are selling, we'll only be selling to the rich. Then there are people that are health conscious. They don't want milk that has so much cholesterol. They give them 3 Crown. Oh, 3 Crown don't have so much cholesterol. It's the same company producing it. Oh, there are people that cannot afford 3 Crown Peak Milk. Let's give them Nunu, because Nunu is a low-cost milk. All right. What are they trying to do? They want to control the entire market by ensuring they have a very large market share. Okay, so in education, we also collect data, analyze data, we collect feedbacks, and we have done it in this training. We take your feedbacks, and with your feedback, we improve on our training. So data is a competitive advantage. When you analyze your data, it helps you to be able to compete favorable in the market. Now, let's look at data growth. Over the years, data has grown massively. I mean, far back 2010, the volume of data was roughly about 2 zettabytes, right? And a zettabyte is about 1 billion terabytes. As at 2021, the data has grown to about 79 zettabytes. That's about 79 billion terabytes. So what it means is data is, the volume at which we put in data, whatever you post on your social media, their data, whatever you do online, anywhere you find yourself. So the rate at which digital data has grown massively. So now let's look at storing data, right? And we're going to look at the origin of storing data. Fundamentally, God was the first person that started storing data, right? Your DNA, the paternity of a child is stored in the child's DNA. That is how powerful God is. God decided to say, okay, for every child that is born, I'm going to save the data of the father in his DNA, right? God started data storage. In fact, the whole data industry stands on that point. Now, as time goes on, during the ancient time, they started saving data in caves and walls, right? If you look at the ancient China civilization, the ancient Egypt civilization, they were writing on caves, on walls. Then as time goes on, they started using scrolls or book, right? You will have heard different things about the holy books were written in scrolls, the Bible and all of those things. Then in the 19th and the 20th century, we started using punch card, magnetic tape, floppy disks. For those that started career in IT, let's say far back 2002, 2001, I mean, the Gen Z will not know anything that is called floppy disks, right? The floppy disk was, the total size of a floppy disk was 1.44 MB. So in those days, if you want to show that you're an IT person, you will have like many floppy disks. And if you remember the old time when we still have what's they used to call it? Video cassette. That big cassette and all of those things. But now, we're in the 21st century, things has changed. We have smaller media storage, but that can even store more things than the big things we used to have. You have a flash drive, and we have the big one, which is the cloud, the data center, which we call the cloud, right? And so, having said that, I'm going to also look at this. Looking at this, where does data come from, right? So look at this example. There is an ice cream shop in Ikoyi and there's another ice cream shop in Ikeja. The ice cream shop in Ikeja sells vanilla, chocolate, strawberry ice cream. And they have a rough idea of their transactions, their sales. I mean, they don't keep sales record. They just say, oh, we open shop today. Lord, let us sell. Oh, and they sell. But the ice cream shop in Ikoyi, they sell more varieties of ice cream. They track all their sales. So they know the ice cream that is selling, the one that is least selling, and all of those things. So looking at this context, who is most likely to succeed? Who is most likely to have a sustainable business? The one in Ikeja or the one in Ikoyi? I need response and I want you to give me reasons why those ones will succeed. I want a lady to talk first now. Madam Josephine, I want to hear you. Are you with me? Josephine, are you with me?
I think the one in Ikoyi.
Okay, why will it sell?
Because keeping all records, all transactions, and I think,
Okay. I want a female to talk. Adekunle Rukayat, are you there? Can you unmute? Tell me which of the business seems to have a sustainable success, and tell me why.
The one in Ikoyi.
Okay, why?
Is there share the screen for the?
Okay. Oh yeah, tell me why. Go on, Madam Rukayat.
Okay, because they track their sales.
Okay, from tracking their sales, what do you think they're going to get from making that decision?
They'll be able to get the flavors that sell and the flavors that don't sell.
I love that answer. Very brilliant answer. Because when you want to optimize your process, once I know that this flavor is selling more and this one is not selling, I can stop selling the one that is not selling. So what it means is I'll not be wasting money on inventory, buying all the raw material to produce what is not selling. But for someone that is not tracking sales, is not sure of the one that is selling or the one that is not selling, he just keep producing. So another thing helps them to optimize inventory, because with optimizing inventory, I will stock a product that is selling more, the raw material to produce what is selling more, and stock less of the raw material of the one that is selling least. One of the things that the Ikoyi shop is doing is they also track the weather data. Now we're in the Harmattan season. I mean, except for those in Lagos, so those in Lagos, they know they experience Harmattan. You guys are too much for you to experience Harmattan in that Lagos. I mean, apology for you guys staying in Lagos. But we that were staying in a better state in Nigeria, I'm not going to mention the state.
We state.
Or your state now, Ibadan.
It's not better than Lagos.
Yeah, it's in Osun.
No, I mean Ibadan. Okay, so we that were started experiencing Harmattan, during this season, ice cream sales will drop because it's the cold weather. Most parents will not buy ice cream for their child because this season most kids have running nose, all of those things. They say no ice cream for you this time, right? So the shop in Ikoyi understood that they are keeping weather data, so they know that during the season where sales will naturally drop because there's a change in weather, what they do is it will help them. They will not stock so much of the product so that there's not going to be spoilage. But the guys in Ikeja, they just buy what they buy every month, which will impact on their profitability. One of the challenges of supply chain is when you have too many inventory than what is required. What it means is you are locking down money for no good reasons. But the moment we entered seasons that we have high temperature, what happens? People naturally take much of ice cream. So what would the Ikoyi shop do? They will optimize their inventory process. Another thing, they can equally optimize price. If I know this product is selling so well, and I'm selling, let's say I'm selling at 2,000 per serve or per cup, right? While the one that is not selling so well, I'm also selling at 2,000. So what I can do is to help that one that is not selling so well, I can drop the price to one. I can even do promo on that one and drop the price to 1.8. Why the one that is selling at 2,000 that I know people are buying so well, I can increase the price to 2.5 and see the response of the market. So we can optimize. So there are many advantages to keeping those sales, and not just keeping those sales, analyzing those sales to be able to make good decisions. So at the end of the day, the shop in Ikeja is making decision based on their gut feeling. No data-driven decision is made. They just sell random ice creams. While the one in Ikoyi, they are making data-driven decisions and they are researching for the best flavor. But in an organization, they make more complex decisions. I mean, financial institutions make more complex decisions, right? When it comes to fraud detection, a mortgage application, they make more complex decisions, and that will now lead us to a certain aspect of this data analysis, which is data wisdom. The core part of analyzing data is to come up with wisdom. What wisdom means is a decision was made and it turned out to give us a good result. That means that decision was a wise decision to make, right? I'm going to make an example before I'm going to ask us something. So let's imagine Lagos State government has hired you as a data consultant to help them find out how they can help elevate poverty in Makoko community of Lagos State, right? What are those data you will collect from that community? So let me repeat my question again. You've been hired as a data analyst consultant by the Lagos State government. Their goal is to elevate poverty in Makoko community, right? What most of the politicians do is to go and share rice in places. Would that take them out of poverty? Absolutely not, right? So I want us to the first.
That one I put it inside the place we wash.
So I want you to now tell me what are the data you're going to collect from that community before you go and analyze it to be able to make a right decision on how to help that community. So I'm waiting for answers. You can drop your answer in the chat function, and you can equally unmute and give me answers. You have been hired by Lagos State government as a data analyst consultant to help them see how they can elevate poverty in Makoko community in Lagos State. What are the kind of data you're going to collect before you start analyzing?
I think majorly they are maybe the type of occupation those around that.
Employment status.
Yes.
I love that. Employment status. So I want to know who is employed, unemployed, underemployed. What other data will I collect in that community?
Ability to afford 3 square meals.
So I'll look at their income. I love your answer. Very brilliant, Mr. Bello. Their income. So what is the income of the family income? So I'm taking statistics. Taking statistics like you're doing questionnaire. Okay, what's your income? And all of that. Good. Another answer. I want answers. I'll give you one. The population of the community. How many by gender? How many male? How many female? It's also important. What other information will I collect from that community? I've collected the employment status.
Population of working class. Of working class of children.
Good.
And how much they earn.
Age group. I love that. I'll narrow that to age group. I want to know the population of each age group, right? Obviously, kids cannot work, so they can't earn. So if we have more kids in the community, there will be a lot of poverty. So what it means is they are over giving birth in that community. Okay, what else will I do for them? What else? What information will I also collect in that community? Is Mr. Kazim trying to talk? Okay, go on, Kazim. I love your answer.
The kind of houses they live in, or the kind of schools the kids attend.
Okay, I'll say the basic amenities in that community. I love your answer, Rukaya, educational level, because educational level can also impact on the level of poverty. Now, before we also go, I told you some times ago that there are metrics for success. The first thing to also look at is what is the definition of poverty? Who can define poverty according to United Nations? You guys should know this.
Those who live below $1 per day.
Thank you. I love that. Brilliant, Mr. Gbenga. So poverty is people living below $1 per day. That means whoever is earning less than 1,700 per day is poor. So even a person that is earning 50k a month is poor, because that's 50k divided by 30 is poor. Now, let's imagine after we collected those data, we realized that there's so much unemployed people. There is no school in that community, and there is no so much job in that community. So what would be a better solution, to share rice for them or to go and do skill acquisition program in that community?
Skill acquisition.
Good. So skill acquisition would solve more problem, because from my analysis, I realized that most people are not educated. So let's imagine by the time we analyzed, we saw that we have more people educated in that community. In fact, we have many graduates. But what is lacking is job. What should the government do instead?
Come again.
So let's imagine after we run the analysis, we have people that are very educated in that community. In fact, the least person in that community finished secondary school. We have many graduates, but if they are still poor in that community, what would be the best approach to solve the problem in that community?
Skill acquisition and job creation.
So job creation, great. That is it. So you now look at it that there is no, when it comes to wisdom, if your data is not analyzed to know what is exactly happening, whatever decision you make will eventually not solve problems. Another thing we did also mention about that community is to look at what is the amenities or the natural things that community have. Maybe that could be leveraged on to help pull out that community from poverty. I hope what I'm saying makes sense, right?
Yes.
Good, thank you. So you looked at it when it comes to analyzing data and coming to the point of getting wisdom out of data or making data-driven decision. You have looked at every aspect critically. So there's something we call the mental model. So the mental model has 4 layers, which is the DIKW pyramid. Don't mind all of these big English, right? Just understand the concept, right? The first thing is data. The first thing is information. The next thing is knowledge. And the next thing is wisdom, right? After every analytic process, we should derive wisdom from it. It should give us direction for what we want to do concerning that case or that project, whether it's in a company, it's in government, it's in a financial institute, and all of those things. So what is data? Data I've talked about it. They are raw data that are the foundation of the pyramid. Information is putting context to data. I'm going to run through this because we still have a lot to cover. And we also, knowledge is power. Then we now come to wisdom. So achieving wisdom is the hardest part of this process, because you have to link up different insights. Look at the example I asked us to work on elevating poverty in a community. The first thing was to define what poverty is, which is to determine the metrics or the benchmark. We realize that a community, anyone earning less than $1 is poor, right? Then based on that, we now started analyzing different factors, educational background, all of those things, to determine the volume of the people that are poor in that community, and to be able to know the exact thing to do for the community to take them out of poverty. Right? Good. So achieving wisdom is the hardest part. I'm going to say this example. Oh no, don't let me say, since I'm live streaming this, I won't use that example. Okay, data in decision making. So we have minor decisions and major decisions. I mean, everybody makes decision every day. The current clothes you're putting on is as a result of a decision you make, but it could be a low impact decision, right? Then we have high impact decisions when it comes to financial matters, education, residents, and all of things. So decision making is the process of making the right choice at the right time. So we have the decision from data decision. So the data is, first of all, we started with asking the right question. Asking the right question from the example we use, even if it is you want to run sales analysis for an organization, is to ask the right questions, right? The next thing is to gather data. Then the next thing is to prepare data. How many of you remember in Excel you were taught how to prepare data? One of the ways to prepare data is to remove duplicates and all of those things. That is the process of data preparation before analyzing your data. Usually as a data analyst, you will work with secondary data. What do I mean by secondary data? Data that was collected by someone else but is brought to you for you to analyze it, right? Then this is where your work is, data conduct analysis, where you analyze data. And once you analyze that data, you share the insight with the decision makers, and decision makers makes the decision. So the good thing is to ask the right question. From the example I used, Makoko community, if I go to that environment and start asking them, what political party do you belong to? That is a very wrong question, because that does not impact poverty. In fact, sometimes asking what's your religion, it does not impact the context of what we want to do in that community, which is elevating poverty. So imagine we went to gather information and we didn't ask the right question, like educational level, age group, gender, employment status, and all of those things. There's nothing to analyze in such data. Then collecting that data, it's a lot of work collecting data. Then you now prepare those data, make sure that you have a clean data. Some data are not appearing twice, all the data format, all data in the right format. And this is all we do as data analysts. You ensure that your data are well prepared. Then the next thing is you analyze. For analysis, there are several tools for analyzing data. You have Python, R, Tableau, Power BI, Excel, Google Sheets. The tools are endless, but for this program we are teaching Power BI, Excel, and SQL. So, and making decision is the last step, but it's the beginning to another step. So once you make some decisions, you also want to go back to evaluate if those decisions makes a lot of sense. So let's imagine you are hired by a company to analyze their marketing campaign. So what are the important things you're going to take note of? That's another example. We're doing another classwork. You have been hired by, who should hire you? Let's say, let me use a food company. By Honeywell, they do spaghetti and co. So they ran a marketing campaign. So they want to analyze if their campaign went well. So I want feedback. What are kind of data you're going to request?
Population of
what?
Children.
No. You're not doing market research.
Okay.
They already once what I call market campaign is they already run different campaign. They did social media campaign.
Okay.
They did
Okay.
radio, TV campaign. So you want to analyze the success of the campaign. So what are those
Okay.
things you will request? I'm going to give an example. I'm going to ask for all their campaign channel. So where are those places they did the campaign, billboard and all of those things. So I've done one for you. I'm expecting feedback. I'm going to call anybody. I'm analyzing their marketing campaign.
We would look at the amount of people that were reached. That is the reach.
Volume,
Look at
reach.
the volume.
Brilliant.
Yes, we also see if it translated into sales, because normally after a campaign there will be a jump in sales.
Good.
So
I love
these
your
are some of the
answers.
things that we look at.
So the reach will be okay. What's the volume of people that were reached through radio, through billboard, through social media? Then when we now look at after reach, we also look at, like you said, volume of sales. So we look at volume of sales before campaign and volume of sales after campaign. So I'll make an example. So let's say the volume of sales before campaign was 100,000 per day, and after campaign is 101,000 per day. Was that a successful campaign or a bad campaign?
Not successful.
You said?
It wasn't successful.
Good. I like your answer, Mr. Kazim. It's not successful. So, and every organization does it. So what they now do is to now improve on their next campaign now. Another thing, they can look at campaign per channel. Oh, we launched our e-commerce platform. And the moment we run campaign on it, we discover that people were buying more from the e-commerce. What are they going to do? They're going to spend more money on social media to ensure that that sales keeps going up. And that's the way it works. That's the way it works. So that is achieving wisdom. And once you achieve, you make a decision, it becomes an iterative process. Data as a resource. So I'm going to also touch on that. So looking at data from the example we've made and the discussion we've had, you discover that it's overwhelming. I mean, data is overwhelming. There's so many things to consider before you make a good decision. And also as a data analyst, there's so many things you have to consider to be able to bring out insight from data. So there's something we now call aggregation, and you must have met it in your analysis since you did Excel. We take aggregate to determine success. So if I looked at it, from the example of Bakoko we made, if at the end of the day, if I went to the government and started reporting that family A, one of them is employed, the other person is unemployed, it becomes unusable data. It becomes meaningless. But if after I run the analysis and I say, 80% of the people in Makoko are unemployed, only 20% have a day job, 50% of them are males, 80% of them 50% of them are female. By the time I start presenting that, it becomes meaningful. And that is where we'll have aggregation. So the common aggregates we have are mean, total, which is sum, maximum, minimum, medium, mode, and all of those things. Look at the example of analyzing a sales campaign or a marketing campaign for Honeywell noodles and all of that. What I'm going to report will be aggregates. Okay, after running the campaign, from this channel, from billboard, this also sales was generated, this also sales. So we're able to compare all channel to look at the most effective channel. So, and the big picture which I've mentioned about are the aggregates, the metrics for success, the KPIs, right? So let me now go to data flow. We'll soon round up this theoretical aspect of this training, and what I'm doing is live stream, so I'm going to share the link once the training is over. Once this part of the training is over. Good. So data flow within an organization, every organization has data management system. So for instance, if you go to the bank for the first time, you're going to meet those in marketing that are going to open an account for you, right? That data goes to those guys in operation that will actually open that account. So there are data flows, right? What it means is data are collected at different stages or different departments, but at the end of the day, the data will come to the IT department for analysis, or comes to the data analyst. And as a data analyst, you must also understand that the data flow, because without understanding the data flow, you can't manage the data, let alone analyze the data. Because you can't run a sales analysis without collecting data from sales. I mean, obviously you have to collect data from sales, right? And that's the way it works. So there's something we call the data domain. We have the data governance, and the data governance is to ensure that data is consistent and trustworthy and isn't misused. And we have data quality, the accuracy of the data, because if the data are not accurate, your analysis and your decision making will go wrong along the line. And there's also a very important aspect of data is data privacy and data security. Data is very big, so we're going to talk about ethics, data ethics, and privacy. I'm going to start with an example. I think sometimes last year or early this year, I had to be in a meeting at the Deputy High Commissioner of UK House in Ikoyi. So the organization that invited me had to lodge me in an hotel in Lekki. So because I'm a data person, I understood data. I got to the hotel, and obviously they're going to ask for your data in the hotel, your name, blah blah blah. Obviously match it with the name of the person that they said is coming to the hotel, to be sure that the booking they made for me, I'm the one in that room, right? But one of the things they asked from me was my valid ID card, and I gave them, and she said she's going to snap it, or she's going to scan it, so that, which is normal. I mean, most hotel will do that, because once you leave, there's any criminal blah blah blah, they're able to trace the person. But I asked her a question: what is your data protection policy? Because you're collecting my valid ID card and you're scanning it and you're keeping it in your system. How do I know that this thing you scan will not be used against me? The lady was just talking. The customer service lady, or the front desk lady, was just talking. Well, I don't blame her, because she does not understand what data protection means. I asked her, at what point will you delete this thing from your system? Because you can't keep the picture of my ID card with you forever, right? And this is what we now call, because data ethics, data privacy is the big thing globally. So there are 5 principles to data ethics. We have permission, transparency, privacy, good intention, and consider the outcome. And for that, when it comes to permission, you have to ask whoever you're collecting data from, you have to ask them, do you willingly give me this data? Which is very important, because the user are in control of their data, right? And also, especially for online platforms, one of the key things of online platform is they have delete account. If you are tired of using Facebook and you want everything on your Facebook account to disappear, you just go to settings, you delete that account. Everything you have ever put on Facebook will disappear, and that is ethical for the data, for when it comes to anything that has to do with the data industry, or across different industry. Then we have transparency. You want to let the person you're collecting those data, or you're analyzing the data from, to know that this is what your data will be used for. And we also have data privacy, and there are things we call the PII, that is personal identifiable information, which is your name, your date of birth, your bank account, your ID number, and all of those, your phone number for those of us in Nigeria, your BVN, your NIN. These are very important data that you have to keep and not expose. So if any platform is asking for it, you have to look at what is their data protection policy. For instance, there's no way you want to open bank account that they are not going to ask you for your BVN, right? These are institutions that have a right to ask you. But if you go to their platform and read their data privacy terms and conditions, you will see that they will write that BVN you give them, they will keep it securely, right? So we now have privacy protection, passwords, and all of those things. And intention is that you have to make known why that data is going to be used. So look at it. We now have what we call the data life cycle. So it starts with planning, right, to storing that data, to cleaning the data, to analyzing and visualizing the data, to sharing the insight, and to destroying or keeping in archives. So for an example I used from the hotel, what I expect is, let's say after 1 month that I've used that hotel and I've gone, all my information that they collected, they should destroy it. There's no reason why they want to keep the scanned copy of my valid ID card forever, right? So from the example we've also made from elevating poverty in Makoko, the first is the planning and collection of data. Then we'll go into the storing of those data. The storing of those data is trying to impute. So let's say we went with paper and biro, we collected those data, or we give them questionnaire to fill. When we get back to the office, what do? We start imputing those data into our Excel. Then we now do data cleaning or data processing. Then we analyze that data and visualize, whether we're using Excel, Power BI, SQL, or any data analytics tool. Then we share the insights with the stakeholder, the decision makers, right? Then we can now, if those data are very sensitive data, they have to be destroyed. But if they are non-sensitive data, they can be kept in an archive for future use. So I've pretty explained the entire concept of the data life cycle, right? So the common mistake about data is when you collect insufficient data, or you collect wrong data, or you lack the appropriate analysis, or you didn't clearly communicate your analysis. So I'm going to jump all of this part because I've explained most of it in my previous communication with you. And another thing as data analysts you must understand is communication is key, right? There are data, when you analyze data, there are some things that you don't use technical. It don't have to be too technical when you're analyzing data, and your visualization has to be clear. So this is pretty much on data literacy. I'll take questions from anybody that have questions. I'll take questions on data literacy aspect. I'll take questions. Then after taking those questions, do I have questions on data literacy? Any questions or feedback on data literacy before I go into recapping those things we've done in the previous lessons? Then I'm also going to show you how to use the LMS. By that point, I'm going to stop the video recording because I don't want that to be on the YouTube. The how to use the LMS, I don't want that to be on the YouTube. Okay, so if there are no questions, it assumes that everybody understood this very class, and I'm happy you did. Right. From the subsequent class, we're going to change. Okay, let me stop this recording, and I'll share the link with the class right away while I now go to